Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Beautifully Made. I am super excited, always excited to bring you a new artist, and this is our November exhibiting artist with me today, Eric Strickland. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. I'm so excited to do this.
Oh, I am so excited to have you share everything that you do under Funky Design Concrete or Funky Concrete Design. I don't want to mess up your business name, so I'm going to throw it over to you. I
All
would love for you to just share some basic information, how you got your name for your business, and what you do.
so my business name is Funky Designs Unique Concrete. And so what I do is I'm adding pigments into my artisan concrete mix. So I get swirls of these bright colors of concrete, and I use it for three things. So first of all, it started with making decor. So I make things like planters and incense burners, bookends, just things you can place around your house or your office. Um, and then I also have a line of jewelry that I do with these colorful pigmented concrete stones. I call it concrete and steel because I use my colorful concrete stones, and then I use stainless steel. And I think, what goes better with concrete than steel? So I
True.
went with this theme of concrete and steel and make just really unique jewelry pieces. Every piece comes out different because I let the colors do what they want to do. And then most recently, I've gone back to my art degree where I used to, paint and things like that to do uh, use my pigmented concrete as wall art. So I'm doing what I call concrete on canvas, and I'm basically abstract painting with colors of concrete. And so there's a lot of color and texture that I use in there, and uh, it doesn't look like anything else.
Yeah. I love going through the gallery on your website, which we will share in the show notes so everyone can see all of the items that you've already described. And thank you for confirming what the name of your business is because I forgot the word unique, and it really, really is. I found you years ago, I believe on Etsy, and I purchased one of your bracelets and didn't even realize that you were at local shows. So when
Oh,
I had this beautiful bracelet, and I ran into you, I think it was at Kendall Market or something like that. I was like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, I have one of your pieces. And then it was just, and this big grin on your face. It was just phenomenal. And over the years, just followed what you've been doing. And then when I opened the studio and then we got to connect again, you were so interested to exhibit. And I said,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. And oh my goodness, it was just like, I had no idea that you did this wall art. And as I've been like slowly telling people all of these artists that are coming in and rotating out per month, I'm letting people know Eric Strickland, he does concrete art. And they just look at me and they're like, it's going to hang on the wall. You can wear it. And they have no clue. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
trust me. Yeah, trust me. So
Yeah,
how
people
long
have
have
this
you been?
concept.
Yeah, I'm
I'm sorry.
sure they do.
Yeah, that's one of the first questions I always get is, well, is it really super heavy? Like the earrings, they think it's going to rip their ears out or whatever.
Yeah.
And no, concrete actually turns out is lighter than natural stone. It's just used for these big heavy things. And so that's how your brain kind of processes concrete as this heavy thing. But, that's why it's so useful is it's not necessarily heavy. You
Yeah, I
see,
just love that.
there's stories about, it's always like a design project for a lot of these schools or engineering project
Mhm.
to do like
Mhm.
concrete canoes and things like that. And it is a really, really useful material.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
also want to
How,
one of your first questions there that kind of got thrown in there was where did the name of my business come from?
oh, yes.
I started my business as a business in 2018, and this was not long after the passing of the musician Prince, and I am a lifelong Prince fan. I've been there on release day for every single release of since 1982 for
My
every
gosh.
single Prince album and Prince single and all of the stuff. And if I had my camera going, which it's not, but if you'd see a big Prince mural on the wall behind me and lots of artwork. So anyway,
Oh,
Um, I started the business in 2018, and what I decided was I was going to go through the entire Prince catalog and find just the right song. And so there's an obscure song that came out during that period where everybody thought he was silent, but he was releasing music online. And the song was called Funky Design. And it just kind of described what I do so well. And so the name of my business is kind of an homage to Prince.
that story, I've never known that about the name. That is so cool. So I love to know, like, how long have you been an artist? Because you go back to your canvas and say, that part of your art, but also how long, how like the concrete influence and that as a medium. I mean, like, how did that start?
So how long have I been an artist? I've always, I can't remember a time where I didn't think of myself as an artist, as even
Yep.
like, 5, 6 years old, I was drawing stuff, and it always kind of was part of my identity, my self-image, who I am.
Yeah.
Um, so I got a degree in studio art from Marietta College in 1994. I didn't know what to do with it. That's so as a studio artist, and that was there was no business, no marketing, no, it was just I could paint, I could draw, I could sculpt a bit. Um,
Hmm.
so I just basically was qualified to be a starving artist. And and pair that with a philosophy minor, and it was like it felt like the most useless degree ever. And I actually went back to school and became a math teacher for 16 years. Why math? Because most schools only have one art teacher, and I needed something a little bit more marketable, just because I was at that point where I was starting a family and all that.
Hmm.
Um, s- uh, but what I discovered was that, well, a few things. One, I didn't have time for an artistic outlet. And as somebody that self-identified as an artist, it was kind of soul crushing. And
Yeah.
then and then teaching, I'm so glad that I spent that time of my life teaching, but it also I burned out.
Mm-hmm.
It was just this, all of the pressures from, there's always somebody different in the administration with different expectations, parents that thought they knew teaching better than the teachers did, and so they're just all of the, government trying to do their thing, and so it was very frustrating to be a teacher. And just as I was getting to that point where I can't do this anymore, I'm halfway through, and if I keep going, the stress of all this is going to kill me. Um, I was introduced to my sister, who her husband was doing tiling on the Outer Banks, but then he started doing some concrete countertops and working with pigments in there and getting these really fascinating effects from it. And my sister was doing some really cool um, decor stuff with it also. And she invited me into her studio, and I saw what they both were doing. She taught me some things, he taught me some things. I threw myself into, doing some research about about this process of working with concrete as an artistic medium. And you know, we were fortunate enough to have our mortgage paid off. And it was, if there was a time where I was going to walk away from teaching and start or return to being an artist, this was the time. And so I threw myself into it. And um, it started with doing the decor stuff. I did, early on, it was trying to copy what my sister did, which, there's an element of I need to find myself. I don't want to steal her cool thing. I want to make it
Sure.
myself. And
Sure.
fairly quickly, I was doing, within the first 2 or 3 months of doing this, as going out and doing craft shows and things like that. I always have a little bit of concrete left after casting a piece. And so I thought, well, it wasn't enough to do anything substantial with, but I'd, kind of try some things. And I think it was my wife that suggested, well, maybe you could do some jewelry with it. And I laughed. I thought, well, concrete jewelry, but, so anyway, I tried it. And the results were really very striking. And it wasn't heavy or anything like that. And so I started doing some little pendants and things, and then it just kind of evolved. Um, and like each success would lead me
Yeah.
off into something else. And I frequently tell customers, where do you get your ideas? And, well, it all starts with, well, that's a stupid idea. Let's try it anyway. And
Yeah.
and so, all these, sometimes the experiments go well, sometimes they don't, and I learn from them. But at any rate, it always, you know, moves me forward. And so the jewelry kind of became a thing, and that's actually the jewelry is what let me actually make a living doing this. And then most recently, getting back to my art degree of working on canvases and things like that, using my design eye and all that to actually do artwork with this is kind of getting me to where I want to be.
That journey. Oh my gosh. Kudos to the wife, because as we speak about what you're going to be doing in the gallery studio beautifully, I also have to thank her for pushing you towards a class. So I think that continuing to run those ideas by her are perfect, because you're hesitant as an artist, oh, am I going to be able to do something with this idea? And we always just let fear creep in slowly. And I'm glad
Oh
that
yeah.
you're battling that and just going out there and trying, because that's what we need to hear, that, you're giving people permission to just try. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And that's a huge part of, well, art is not, you hear this all the time, art's not a product, it's a process. And
Hmm.
and so every time I do I had a situation where I had this canvas that I felt like was almost done. I was so happy with it, it just needed one more element. And then I hemmed and hawed over it for a couple of weeks. And then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do this thing. And as I was doing it, I'm like, I'm ruining this. And I probably did, but then, like, so I did a bunch of things to that canvas. I sanded it down. I did some scraping on it, and it's back to being one step away from something that I'm really proud of. So it's that, I just gotta I gotta get past my fear of ruining things and just do it and see what
Let's
happens.
get out of our own way.
Yeah.
Oh, we are the worst, I swear. I totally have been there with, I
Mhm.
understand that so deeply. My gosh. Well, so before the concrete, what was your main medium?
So I guess I really, I mean, I did oil and acrylic and watercolor
Okay.
and
Okay. So painting.
excuse me. And I like to draw and stuff, but I
Yep.
think watercolor was probably my medium of choice.
Really? So that's
Yeah.
just such a juxtaposition, where the concrete, the heaviness, the texture, and then
Oh
this
yeah.
light and, lofty watercolor. I love that. I mean,
But
just
then
amazing.
I'll tell you what, if the most obvious thing about my artwork is the foreground and these really bold, striking lines. But if you look past that at the background that I've created behind it, there's a
Mhm.
lot of like flowing colors and blending, and so there's that it's still in there, that
Yeah, yeah,
it's not obvious.
yeah. It's good though, the depth
Oh
that you
yeah.
get to capture, and while you're looking at a piece. I think that that's a great thing to let people know to look for when they're
Hmm.
seeing them, because I love your dimensional pieces as well as the jewelry. So when we get to see the canvas at the exhibit, that's going to be a first for me. I don't know that I've ever seen any of your canvases. So I'm very
Okay.
excited that we're going to get to see that, because that's going to be new for me to see. Oh my
It,
goodness.
yeah, it's a process moving those around and setting up. So,
Oh yeah.
unless I'm doing a multi-day show, I don't bring them out on the road with me.
Makes sense. That makes sense. Where do you find your inspiration for like what to make or the color combinations that you create?
Um, so a lot of my inspiration is actually the material itself. I'll be doing something and like, wow, look at what that concrete just did, and then I try to recreate it. Um, Sometimes it's conversations with people that they see something else, and then oh, that's really neat. Sometimes like I recently have started going into the local uh, rock shop and picking up like colorful gravel and stuff like that. Like I just did a piece with some green quartz glitter in it, and I sold one this past summer that had some amethysts uh,
Oh,
in it, and so doing like because the concrete itself is fairly matte in its finish, and so
mhm.
getting some of that the natural stone in there to add it a little sparkle or whatever, it gives it some more depth and things. Um, so sometimes I'm inspired by the materials, sometimes, as far as color combinations, I'm looking at, sunsets, or I see a cool piece of
Yeah.
artwork. I'm a big music
Yeah.
fan, and sometimes I'll just flip through the records and, oh, look at this album cover. I love these colors
Yes.
together. And it because so when I was painting, I'd have the whole array of colors before me. Any color of the rainbow is just a matter of squeezing some paint out onto the palette or mixing the right color, watercolors or whatever. Working in concrete, because concrete wants to cure very quickly, I have to pick a palette. It's got to be a fairly limited palette. I have to work fast. And so getting, a selection of like 3 or 4 colors. And yes, I can blend some as I work, but it's because I work so fast. Um, you know, I- it starts with getting the right set of colors to work with.
Seems like a fun challenge, you've got a time limit, that there's these stipulations that are kind of
Yeah,
framing your work, and
yeah,
that's a cool challenge to have.
it is. And the material, I'll have to show you this pair of pieces when we set up. Um, that I did these two smallish square canvases. I think they're 10 by 10 or 12 by 12 or something like that. But anyway, I did one piece right after I made the mix. And there's like blue and red and white and black and a little bit of purple in there. And the colors, when I poured them onto the canvas, they just flowed and made you would swear that my intention was to make this beautiful cloudscape. And it looks like the sun streaming through the clouds and then like maybe 10, 15 minutes later, that color had started all of the concrete had started to set a little bit. And so I poured
Mhm.
onto the canvas and it did not want to move. It didn't flow. And I was actually like banging that canvas on the floor, trying to get it to spread across the canvas. And so what it did was it kept its tight line. That there was no blending of the colors. Just these really cool swirls. And so the two pieces together, I told you one looks like the cloud, the other one looks like the swirls, like the surface of the water underneath those clouds. And so they're such an excellent pair because
Oh,
not because of anything I did intentionally, but because of how the material acts.
yeah.
And that's how like I said, the material becomes its own inspiration.
Yeah. I love that. Oh, yeah, I can't wait to check those out. I can't wait to see those. And I love the explanation of like how it, became and how they complement one another,
Right,
even
right,
though
right.
the intention was to have the similar colors, but the, final pieces look totally different, but still relate. So
Yeah.
happy accidents. We love those.
Serendipity, my favorite.
That's right. My favorite word. I love that word. Oh my goodness. So what do you feel like your biggest challenge is just as an artist overall, not just, working
Hmm.
with that medium, but what's your biggest challenge?
So I make my money out on the road. I do this year I'll have I think 53 dates where I'm actually out doing a show. And I like something like Yankee
Wow.
Peddler, that's 6 days right there. Um,
Oh,
but so, but to do what I do, and I don't have employees, it's just me. Um, so I have to do all the jobs. And, that's all stuff like from my art degree, I didn't get any of that information. And so
right.
learning how to do things like accounting and taxes and do web design and do promotion and social media and make the packages that I sell my stuff in, and then building displays so I can manage my in-person shopping experience and all these other things that, I had no concept of, it's, but on the flip side, that's the challenge of it, but that's also what makes it fun and exciting for me because I'm not
Right.
doing the same thing every day. And if I don't feel like working a canvas, I can be doing the web design. I can be photographing. I can be shooting pictures of my work so that I can, put it up on the web or, promote on the website or
Yep.
whatever. But um, there's so much that's involved in having a business that, and fortunately, my father, he had a business that he ran out of the house. He had a convenience store up in Boothbay Harbor, Maine, where my high school years were. And so I got to see that it's not just the front facing stuff. I mean, there's all of the behind the scenes work that goes into doing something like this, that nobody ever sees. But you know, I, as far as challenge goes, I mean, I've got a list of things I want to try. So
Yeah. I bet.
the inspiration for years and years and years was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then I figured out what I'm going to do. And now I've got more things to try than I have time to do. So it's time management. It's all of the other stuff that goes along with doing doing this as a business.
Yeah. Yeah. On the business side. I hear you loud and clear. I get that too. My
Yeah,
heart is in the art, but I still have a business to run.
yeah.
It's hard.
The other thing that comes to me as far as a challenge is because of all of these things and because of my kind of chaotic nature of working, keeping a clean workspace is all but impossible for me. And so like this
Yep.
weekend, my wife walks into the room, she's like, I just look like just a ball of stress. Like, what is the problem? I said, I've just spent 45 minutes looking for a pair of wire cutters. I never did find them. I had them
Yeah.
2 days ago, and then they're gone. And I'm trying to, wire up my canvases so that we can display them at beautifully, and just, you know, just the
Oh yeah.
chaos of it all. And
And you
my,
probably carried him in another room and didn't even realize it or something. I mean,
right,
oh
right,
yeah.
yep. So,
Oh goodness,
that's
yeah.
that's the other
Workspaces.
big challenge, but that's more of a me challenge than a running a business. My own,
Um,
I'm just a chaotic person, I guess.
you don't seem chaotic. Now, Eric, you're very organized. I don't believe that. So I would
Um,
love to let everybody know, like, how I know you're at shows. You do a ton of
yeah.
shows, but where can
Mhm.
they find like where those shows are and where you're at? How do they find you and follow you?
Okay, so my website is probably you can find everything else from there. My website is Funky Designs OH for Ohio, funkydesigns.oh.com. All of my social medias are also Funky Designs OH. So that's on Instagram and Facebook and Threads and whatever. And then all you can find some of my work on Etsy. Um, it's the frustrating thing about the web is, like I said, most of my income comes from doing the jewelry, but every piece of jewelry is different. And so there's not actually a lot of jewelry on the website because I would have to do separate listings for every single piece because each one is different. So the
I
best,
have been at your shows and you have a lot of selection, so I do not blame you for placing them all on there.
yeah.
Definitely.
So,
Oh, goodness.
but yeah, my calendar is also up on the website. And between now and the end of the year, I've got shows in Akron, in Canton, in Pittsburgh, not Columbus, Cleveland, And then, I do all over, the eastern half of the country, or the eastern half of the state, and then into Pittsburgh. And so, the if you want to see all the jewelry, that's the best place to catch me, is find me on the road.
Yeah, I agree totally. So I also want to talk about how you give back to organizations. Can you explain some of the ways that you do that and some of the
Oh,
organizations that you support?
all right. So, as a teacher, I always tried to make my classroom a very safe space. Um, and which, with high school students can be a challenge. And it turned out that my LGBTQ students were so incredibly grateful for that, and it made a big impact on them. And so, and I taught in a pretty rural place, and so there wasn't a lot of that kind of safe space mentality going on.
Yeah.
So when I left teaching, I wanted to find a way to continue to help those students. That the LGBTQ population is the highest suicide risk amongst our youth. And so there's an organization called the Trevor Project, and that is their goal, is to end youth LGBTQ suicide. And so that kind of became what the organization that I wanted to support to further this cause. So I started making 5 years ago. I started with casting rainbow stones to do rainbow jewelry, and I donated 25% of all of that to the Trevor Project. And each year I add in a new flag. So this past year was the 5th year of doing it. I had rainbow, I had trans, bi, lesbian, and pan. And so it's become like a whole line of jewelry that I do, and all of that I donate 25% to the Trevor Project. So to this point, I've raised about $2,800 for them, with this goal of ending youth LGBTQ suicide. And it's one of those things where even having that kind of thing out in a mainstream event helps them feel included, feel seen, and that's so important. And so I don't have a whole lot to share at this point, because it's usually a Pride Month thing. But I do
Okay.
have the rainbow pendants up on my website, and I will continue to donate 25%. So if you go to funkydesigns.oh.com, you'll see some of that work up there. And so that, like I said, each year I add in a new one. And right now, I basically take votes for, what to add next year.
Okay.
And the leading vote getter for next year is, shoot, I've forgotten.
That's okay. We'll catch it up and
I
put
know.
it on those show notes, because I'm definitely going to
Okay.
call out that pendant so people know exactly where to find that, and then
Okay.
also
Okay.
put the link for the Trevor Project on. I
Excellent.
absolutely
Appreciate it.
love that you're doing that. That has my heart. Like, that's where I got my rainbow bracelet, was from your shop when you
Oh,
had
okay.
it for Pride Month. And I absolutely want to make sure people know that my space is inclusive and accepting and a safe space for everybody. And so I just wanted to reiterate how much I love that you're supporting the Trevor Project, and that how I'm going to be sure that that information is in the show notes, because that is just tremendous. I love that you're doing that, Eric.
Perfect.
So thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you have any preferred ways people contact you if they have a special request? Do you even take special requests? Like, holidays are coming up. What if somebody wants something specific? Do you do things like on a commission basis?
So it's one of those things where I'm always open to it. And people say, well, I'll reach out, and it's very rare that it actually happens. But if you want to email me, my email address is eric@funkydesigns.oh.com. That's really the best way to get a hold of me. Please, if you do so, let me know that you heard me on the Beautifully Made podcast, just because I get spam like everybody else does. And
Yeah,
it's, and there's this unfortunate trend I'm seeing of targeting artists who are, we're not a wealthy group, folks. And, and so the
right. And it
targeted,
happens a lot.
yes. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. So, yeah. So let me know specifically where you heard me and what you have in mind, so I don't, you know,
Yeah.
throw that in the spam folder.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah, definitely. And we'll have your contact information in the show notes as well.
Okay.
So, Eric, did I miss sharing anything that you wanted to share other than on November 3rd, Sunday? That is your opening reception at
Yeah.
Beautifully at Oakwood Square from 1 to 3.
Yeah.
Beautiful
I'm,
Sunday afternoon. Please come out and see his work. Oh my goodness. So
I'm
excited
excited.
about that. Yes. And then in November 12th in the evening, 6 to 8, we have a concrete earring class.
Yeah. So what I've done is I've made up, a bunch of, like, I went through my stones and I found, I don't know, 100 pairs of stones that match, because that's part of the problem is, like, even two stones, I can't make two stones that are exactly identical, but
Yeah,
I
I
can get them
see that.
pretty close. So, yeah, I went through and found a bunch of pairs of stones that, and then we'll get all the parts out, and I'll teach people how to assemble them and mount the stones, and
Yeah, and you'll
so they
get to
can
use the metal
customize.
and the concrete, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's the just love that urban like look and feel of it. It's just so
Yep.
cool.
Yep. Yeah, I like the irony of, these very industrial materials, but it's a very finished look when it's done, and it kind of,
Beautiful. I love the
it
matte finish of it.
oh yeah. Yep.
Very elegant.
It makes it look different than other stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you have not once said that you're following this trend. You are setting a trend. You are setting up a whole beautiful look all on your own. And I'm just very excited to introduce it to the community if they have not got to experience it yet. So
yeah,
thank you so much, Eric.
absolutely. Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to November.
I know it's here already. So thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you.